Hi there. My name is Juji. Welcome to my channel. This is a space for anyone and everyone who is interested in exploring relationships and personal development through the human design system. I'm really excited today because I had the opportunity to watch a documentary about Princess Diana recently, and it was basically documenting from the moment that she got together with Charles till the time of her death and everything in between. And it brought back a lot of memories of all of the news clips and all of the things that I had seen about them over the years. And of course, it made me wonder, what was up with these three? This was perhaps the most famous love triangle of all time. So what really happened behind the scenes? And what I discovered is so incredible. I can't wait to share it with you. And I think that I'm going to have to break it up into two parts because this is going to be a long one. There's a lot to dig into. So today I'm going to talk about Diana and Charles, and then I'm going to get into Charles and Camilla because, of course, they're the ones that ended up together. So before I get started, I wanted to look at the charts of the people I'll be talking about. Let me share with you Charles, Diana, and then their relationship chart. So this is Prince Charles. He is a generator. He's a 4-6 profile, sacral authority, triple split on the right angle cross of explanation. And the triple split is particularly interesting. We'll get into that in a little bit. And also, I want to point out that Prince Charles has a lot of individual chemistry in his chart, which plays a big role in how things went the way that they did. But let's put a pin in that. This is Princess Diana's chart. She is a projector. She is a 1-3, and she has emotional authority, just like the Queen. She is a single definition, and she is on the right angle cross of tension. This is the chart of Charles and Diana as they are overlaid over one another. This is a way to look at the chemistry between two different people. And what I always look for at the very beginning is the connections that they have in their chart. And they only have one electromagnetic connection, which we'll get to in a moment. So what I really want to start with is what happened. I want to just give us a little bit of an overview, a refresher, if you will, about the historical events that led up to Charles and Diana's divorce and then him marrying Camilla. And then we're going to put on our human design goggles and look at it through that lens. So Prince Charles was 32 years old. He was being told left, right, and center that he needed to choose a wife to create an heir. Of course, what is the monarchy if it doesn't have an heir? And he was only interested in a woman who was married at the time, Camilla Bowles. Unfortunately, even if she had gotten divorced, it was pretty clear to him that that was a non-starter because his grandfather was only king because his brother abdicated the throne in order to marry a divorcee, the very famous Wallis Simpson. That was a huge scandal in the family. And so, of course, Charles was to choose somebody a lot more appropriate. And basically, Diana was chosen for him. She fit the bill in terms of coming from a good family, and she was only 19 years old. So they have a 13-year age gap. But this also ensured that the woman he was marrying was still a virgin. So Diana and Charles kind of got thrown together, and it seemed in the beginning that Diana saw this as, a fairy tale come to life. She was like a nursery school teacher, a nanny or something like that. And then like in swoops Prince Charles, and all of a sudden she's royalty. She has this huge ring on her finger, and the wedding was one of the most publicized things in the entire world. Most people remember watching that if they were alive. So there was this whole hoopla around it. And then, of course, she was expected to, you know, do these appearances, and the media fell in love with her. She was this very warm, very caring, very charismatic, and obviously beautiful woman. But fairly early on in their relationship, rumors started to circulate that like he was just not that into her, and nobody could understand why. Like, it was mind blowing to them that this absolute, like, I don't know, gem of a woman was just not captivating for him. And in fact, he seemed like he was kind of resentful of all of the attention she was getting, because he was the one used to all of the cameras pointing at him. And now all of a sudden they were pointing at her. So there might have been some jealousy there as well. And more rumors started to circulate that there was something going on between him and this other woman. And in fact, like, scandalous books were written about the two of them, and, you know, tapes were being released. And then finally, you know, Diana had had enough. They separated. Eventually they divorced. And then, of course, unfortunately, she passed away in a car accident being chased by the paparazzi and her lover at the time. And this was the tragic tale of this, you know, star-crossed situation. And nobody could understand how Charles could prefer a married woman who, you know, doesn't seem to be anything to really write home about. And Diana was this supernova in the public eye. So what was really going on? Okay, let's start with the fact that Prince Charles is a 4-6, and it was really around his Saturn return that he was getting all of this pressure from his family to marry. Now, I just did a video on the Queen, and what I didn't really mention in that video is that all of her chemistry is collective. Collective chemistry is all about the big picture, the totality. In her eyes, the monarchy came first. And so when she was trying to force Charles into getting married, she was doing it in the name of upholding the monarchy. What she wasn't really counting on is that Charles is mostly an individual, and individuals can really only go their own way. They really can't be forced into tradition, and they can't really be forced to adhere to what the totality is asking of them. But of course, Charles gave it the old college try and relented and married Diana in the middle of his Saturn return, during which you're really not here to be making big life decisions, especially if you're a 6th line and you're transitioning from this first third of your life that was really kind of bumpy and tumultuous into this much more introspective time of your life where you're here to really make sense out of everything that happened. This transitional phase can be like a 5-year window, and Charles was right within that 5-year window. And it was just not really the time to make that decision. But of course, the pressure from the family wasn't necessarily something he could say no to. And in fact, he has an open solar plexus. So he was probably trying to avoid that confrontation by just doing what he was told. But, you know, he is a triple split definition, and he was really into being out and about and socializing, as a lot of triple splits do. And Diana is a projector. She needed a lot more one-on-one time with him. So right off the bat, there was this public persona that they were here to uphold, and she was never really able to have that one-on-one time with him. It was probably few and far between. And, you know, she is an emotional being who is very tribal in a sense. So his individuality and her tribalism have a clash in and of themselves. And then her emotionality being something that he's taking in, distorted and amplified, could have made that very uncomfortable. So of course he didn't want to spend a lot of alone time with her. And of course, she probably took that very personally. The other thing that seems like Diana took very personally was that she was getting all of this recognition from the outside world. Like everywhere she went on these excursions with Charles, like people would fawn all over her and they would bring her flowers and children would come and hug her. And it was just this like outpouring of love towards her, but she wasn't getting that at home. So she was like, you wanted me to be this public figure. You wanted me to be somebody who is being adored and recognized, and people are recognizing me, but you can't recognize me. It's the irony to end all ironies that she was being recognized by everyone else, but the one person she wanted to be recognized from. But also maybe she wanted some recognition from the queen as well, who seemed to also kind of disapprove of this, like, you know, outpouring of feelings from her, where she has always maintained this stoic demeanor. And all of a sudden, you know, Diana was being called the princess of the people. And that was very unusual for the royal family. They were counting on the fact that because she was so young, they were going to be able to, you know, keep her in line in a way. So Diana definitely didn't fall in line. And one of the things that I attribute this to is that she has gate 39, not only in her sun Earth, so it is a really big part of who she is, but it's also her design, excuse me, it is also her design Mars. And this is the gate of provocation, gate 39. So she was very provocative in the things that she did and the way that she spoke. Even in this documentary, I saw her having some very provoking words, throwing them at the media as they were asking her questions. And I just like giggled to myself, knowing full well what was going on. But boy, was that something that was unusual in the royal family, who were always very tight-lipped in a lot of ways. And especially when the marriage started to fall apart, like Diana was not silent about this. You know, they were like, oh my gosh, you know, don't look behind the curtain. And she was like, here's behind the curtain. So, you know, it wasn't really appreciated from her, but there's no other way for her to be. She was just being herself. She was just provoking people's spirit, and it worked. When she passed away, it was just this outpouring of love and compassion, and people were sobbing, and the amount of flowers that were being brought to Buckingham Palace was just unprecedented, really. She was somebody so beloved and so incredibly revered, and she got the recognition from everyone but the ones that she really wanted it from. And that's really the tragedy of her life. But her legacy that she left is of such a humanitarian. And I really think that her channel 4037, the channel of community, is what we can really attribute this to, because she was somebody who, like I said, was provocative, but also was really concerned with fairness. So she provoked people to see the injustice in the world. She was one of the first people who was publicly photographed touching an AIDS patient. She went to Africa and advocated for, you know, landmines and for children who were starving. Like, this is not something that royals necessarily did. Sure, they would travel to these places, and who knows if, you know, Charles had anything to say about whether or not she should be shaking hands with an AIDS patient or not, but she did it her way, you know, and the royal family was just onlookers, just like the rest of the world. And it was really quite something to see. Now, the one thing that I want to point out about her connection chart with Charles is, like I said, they only had one electromagnetic connection, and that is the channel of struggle. And boy, did they struggle. I mean, guys, you can't make this stuff up, honestly. This is so crazy. So the channel of struggle is really about struggling to be yourself as an individual. And that's what they were struggling with the whole time, right? Like, Charles is going to be king one day, so he's struggling to step in and be able to fill those shoes. She's going to be queen one day, you know, so she was struggling with how to be this person in the limelight the way that, you know, she knew how, which was not something that she was necessarily groomed or prepared for. But their individuality was at odds with what was expected of them. And so that is really where they struggled the most, is being accepted by the public and being accepted by one another. You can see in this context how hard it must have been for them to keep up appearances for as long as they did, because these are not well-matched individuals, right? Like, Charles is just going his own way and just wants to be left alone. Princess Diana just wants to be loved and recognized. I mean, it was just kind of a disaster. If they had had me around, I would have told them from the jump that this was not going to work out. So, you know, human design could have saved the day, but of course we didn't have these tools at the time, and nor would it have really made a difference, I think. And that's really what it came down to. There was an Oprah interview with Diana at one point in this documentary, and she was looking at Diana going like, so none of the fame, none of the fortune, none of that stuff like made it worth it to try and work this out? And basically the answer is no. Like, we can see no amount of money can make a marriage work. No amount of, you know, all eyes being on you can hide the fact that these two people were not meant to be together and didn't want to be. Maybe they had moments of that in the beginning, but certainly throughout most of their marriage, there was no love between these two people. And there wasn't really any, you know, chemistry between them. So I don't think that that's a coincidence. All right, guys, I think this is a really good place to wrap it up. Like I said, I'm going to be doing part 2 where I explore Charles and Camilla Parker Bowles, see what was going on with those two and why they seemed to not be able to stay away from each other, even when Charles was very publicly married to somebody else. If you enjoyed this video, please press the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Please also leave me a question if you have any comments or concerns. You can also follow me on Instagram at HDbyZ, and you can find me on my website. The link will be in the show notes. There you'll see that I do individual human design readings, relationship mentorship programs, and I run a community for conscious women who are also learning how to follow their strategy and authority through human design. Thank you for being here. Ciao for now.